bienvenidos a Cadiz. Bienvenidos a SailGP.
It's the deciding day at the Spain Sail Grand Prix. 10 international crews are fighting for every point.
Look at this.
Just send it, man.
Oh, wow.
Only 3 teams can make the cut for the final. Will it be a dream ending for Spain, or will rising stars Denmark upset the unrivaled Australians? Welcome to the Spain Sail Grand Prix.
Stand by. 0, go, go, go. Go away. Slowly coming away. Turn. Here we go. Very well sound, everyone.
On Spain's southwest coast lies one of the country's oldest port cities. Cadiz is perfectly situated for international commerce and world-class water sports. And today it's home to Championship Sunday as the Spain Sail Grand Prix sails into Andalusia with 10 national teams all looking to take the top prize at the 5th event of Season 4 of SailGP. A beautiful weekend of world-class sailing will come to a close after 2 more fleet races and 1 event final. With the fans from across Spain and Europe converging on the city's iconic seawall for a prime viewing position of the world's best sailors. Alongside Olympic silver medalist Lisa Darmanin and Olympian Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris. Before we get to today's racing, let's recap what took place on Atlantic on day 1.
It was all action from the race starts in Cadiz.
Penalty Switzerland, you have been disqualified.
And their race 1 is done.
Don't go in there, Eric. No.
The crowd went wild for Spain in race 1.
Viva la España, Spain takes the win.
But then they got greedy with Canada in race 2.
Aggressive manoeuvre. Penalty Spain, relative Canada.
France turned their fortunes around after their penalty in race 1.
This is going to be huge! So tight!
They reset and fought off the Australians.
Viva la France as Quentin Delapierre and the French get the victory in race number 2.
Denmark were on form yesterday with a 3rd and a 4th place finishes, as were Australia making light work of the final race of the day.
Defending champion Australians, they take the victory here in Cadiz.
Denmark climbed up from 5th to 3rd and then split from rival Spain on the last downwind to steal 2nd place.
Consistent sailing from the Danes. They're right in the mix.
So after 1 day of racing, the standings look like this. It is Australia on top with 25 points. Rockwell, Denmark sit in 2nd. Spain is in 3rd despite being deducted 4 points because of that incident with Canada. Then you have the USA, France, New Zealand, Canada, Switzerland, Emirates GBR disappointing, and Germany at the bottom of the table. So after 3 races yesterday, we've got 2 fleet races today, and then the event final with only the top 3 teams will compete. Remember, it's 10 points for first place, only 1 point for last. Right now, Stevie Morrison has today's course map.
Here we are above the beautiful city of Cadiz, and let's take a look at the race course the teams have today. After that straight line sprint to Mark 1, the course opens up, and the boats can sail their own way, trying to find the shortest time between gates. At each gate, they can turn left or right. Remember that sailing boats only go fast when they sail at an angle to the wind, so we see them zigzagging around the course, trying to gain tactical advantage. The conditions on the course are hard to predict, so who will adapt best to these dynamic environment is going to take the win here today in Cadiz.
As the fans continue to make their way to the seawall to watch day 2 of the Spain Sail Grand Prix, we are just about set to go racing. Beautiful conditions out there. The big question is how much wind will Mother Nature provide? And to find out that, we check in with the 4th member of our broadcast team down on the water. Here is Jenny Tollett for a report.
Well, it is stunning conditions today, Todd. Early this morning, we woke up to overcast skies, cold and windy, but as the afternoon has grown on, it's become sunny and unfortunately a little bit less breeze. So 15 to 20 kilometers per hour from the southwest, a similar direction to yesterday. Similar flat sea state. The Rockwell team Team Denmark has been lapping again, but also Emirates GBR really out there with something to prove, and perhaps with Hannah Diamond subbing in today. They had to get a little extra practice time, but let's see if they can pull off a good start and make their way back up the leaderboard.
All right, thanks, Jenny. Much more from you, and everyone now in there, Stevie. To Jenny's point, the wind has died off yesterday, so that will change things. Obviously, the way this course is compressed, and it's going to be tight, and then the change for Emirates GBR.
It's really tricky conditions, that goes without saying, and we saw yesterday the whole fleet is super heightened. We're halfway, 5 events into the season. Everyone was pushing really hard in this light wind. I think the start can be so important. Expect a lot of boat-on-boat action.
Under 30 seconds to go before the start of race number 4 here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix in Cadiz. Everyone getting in position and very light wind conditions.
Trying to keep your air clear now as importer on board the US boat at the moment. We see at the top of the line a lot of space. Bottom of our screen, Great Britain. There should be a gap up there, but how's the acceleration going to be? New Zealand, Australia out the middle of the line. It's all about hitting this line when it goes white as fast as possible. Clear start there, great start by Canada, great start by New Zealand, and it's all about building speed now. All those boats slightly behind are going to struggle for less wind as Rockwell, big acceleration there. Here they go, it's now a sprint in towards Mark 1.
So a lot of the teams right now looking going H1. That's 1 hole out of the water like the Americans right there, Lisa. And I guess if you're on board, you're trying to find those gusts that Jenny talked about.
Yeah, this is really hard because it's spread out, it's light. We've only got 4 people on board, so it's about working the boat up. As soon as you've got 1 hull up, you reduce the drag, the boat can accelerate, and then it's about seizing the moment when you think you can pop on the foils.
So approaching mark number 1, Denmark has put themselves in a great position. The Americans are slotted in right behind them. The Kiwis on the inside. Who's going to get priority as they enter that yellow circle?
Everyone's quite fast behind.
Nice work by Rockwell to roll around the front there. They were fast on the outside, and of course a good race in race 4 here could cement Rockwell Denmark's place in the final already. The scores are tight going into this final day, and New Zealand, well, they need a good result. USA, they need a good result, and a top 3 position at Mark 1 is an excellent way of going about that. But can any boats get up and foiling? Bottom left-hand corner of our screen, Great Britain, they're up and foiling. Watch the Emirates GBR boat accelerate away. That's the magic that they need, and they're going to be fast now, working hard on the handles at the front of the boat. Hannah Diamond in on the front there. She's got that great grinding technique, and she's now moving away as the first 2 boats are foiling. And in the pack, wow, there's not going to be a lot of extra wind flying around. Hard to accelerate the boats if you're in that big group. New Zealand, Germany are all struggling as we see Rockwell Denmark. First manoeuvre completed, and can they get back up and foiling again?
And Lisa, with this wind, what's harder, getting the boat up and foiling or keeping it foiling?
Getting it up and foiling. So the speeds that we're looking for is around 28 kilometers per hour. So once they know that they're hitting those speeds, they've got that data on their wind screen, then they say, okay, we're fast enough, we can go for it. And it's about using your opportunity. So after you hit the maneuver, you're thinking, okay, patience, 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 we've hit the number, let's go. And, you know, Denmark, they're doing 40 kilometers per hour.
Turning up in 5.
Great first downwind leg by Denmark. They did a brilliant job of getting the boat onto the foil again after the manoeuvre. And I think we're going to see a real playbook between the crews here today. Do you sail the extra distance trying to get on the foils, or do you just say, well, it's going to be hard to get on the foils and we'll minimise distance? Denmark have absolutely nailed both, but Great Britain, we saw they were up and foiling, but they've sailed a lot of extra distance versus New Zealand. New Zealand have sailed probably nearly 300 metres less than Great Britain, a lot slower. But in that race to the final for New Zealand, where it looks pretty at the moment, if they can hang on to this second place with the US falling back, could be a last-minute dive for the final. But of course, we know Lisa Darmanin, she's going to have her head up in the Oracle cloud, staying on top of the results for us as the day goes on.
I guess the big disappointing thing is, you know, Spain has gone into today in 3rd. They collected a few penalty points for their collision yesterday, so they've dropped out of the top 3 so far. So that battle on for 3rd place is definitely on. But Great Britain, they had that excellent start, but it looks like it's going to be pretty hard for them to make this final.
And while Denmark's able to go through gate number 2 foiling and pull way out in front, the rest of the fleet really struggling now, trying to find that wind and trying to get the boats moving again. Very slow pace right now, different from what we saw yesterday. But as Jenny Tulloch reported, the breeze has dropped off precipitously this morning, and a tight rounding there between the Kiwis and Great Britain.
I think the interesting thing as well is the advantage in these boats and in this wind is if you can get yourself moving quickly, you make your own wind. So how were Denmark going at nearly 45 kilometers an hour down there when we can see the other boats struggling to make it. And that's just because if you're slow already, you're in less wind, you make less wind, and you can't get up on the foils. As we say, that magic number is you're looking for nearly 30 kilometers an hour of speed.
This is race committee. We are moving the windward gate, shortening the race to 0.3 nautical miles.
Now the race course is already quite small, and so the race course moves and moves. It gets shorter and longer depending on the wind strength. So it's lucky we've got Mel Roberts out there being able to adapt. And the thing is, you know, Denmark is so far ahead right now. But I think if you get to Mark 1 first in these conditions, you have clear, and because they nailed that maneuver, that's really what got them the distance there.
So there you see the pace. The Americans currently sitting in 7th place. They were as high as 3rd early in this race, and a difficult downwind leg for them. So Stevie, they're going to need to pick up some points here because Spain had almost gift-wrapped that 3rd position to them. Now the Spanish are back in 6th, 1 spot ahead of the Americans.
It's really tight on the points, and its place is absolutely crucial. What Spain did a really good job of yesterday, and Denmark was making those overtakes here, as we see on the bottom left-hand side, the different speeds. Denmark out in front, no surprise to see them going faster. They're just sailing in clearer wind. It's easy to be quick. Don't expect there to be an awful lot of foil height seen, especially on these upwind legs, Lisa.
Well, I mean, it is only around 30%, but compared to everybody else, that's a considerable amount. Obviously, we're used to seeing 90s in that, but, you know, in these conditions, it's actually more significant to get up on the foils, and we may see them have an attempt here.
So Denmark leads race number 4.
Whole trim, max trim.
Going for max trim here. We'll see if they can get the boat up. Looking for a little puff on the right-hand side.
I think the one thing to consider here is if you do try force the boat up, you could lose more distance to where you want to go. So it's about weighing up whether you think you can do it or not. And if you get it wrong, you actually move back into the pack like the British team did.
Constant communications across the fleet, as you see at the top of the board there, just 11.1 kilometers an hour, and that's spread across the entire course, Stevie. So this is really on the cusp of not even be able to fly or get up in the foiling position.
Well, we can see Denmark, they headed in towards that Cadiz shoreline. They tried to get the boat foiling, and it didn't work for them. So they've now decided, okay, let's try and minimize the distance we sail. But I think the story we need to keep track of, United States, Spain, it's that battle for the final. New Zealand here, they've chosen to take a right turn away from the shore. We can see top of our screen, Denmark, they're wallowing somewhat. And now, yeah, these are the points. This is the all-important battle for the final. Denmark, well, they're in fantastic shape at the moment. Australia, again, both those boats rewarded for a good day one. But New Zealand, the 2nd place here, and they've decided to do an extra turn at the top, but they found some nice wind, doing 15 kilometers an hour already away from the mark. And it's New Zealand at the moment. They'll be happiest with the start to day 2. It's not a lot of wind, but all the points are the same. Doesn't matter what the wind is. It's still about getting this boat round the course as quickly as possible.
I think you're right.
So a much slower race than we saw yesterday. A lot of time to analyze the data. And to your point, Stevie, as Denmark went to the top of the screen and New Zealand went to the other, it looks like New Zealand's getting some great dividends, taking their medicine early with that extra maneuver. Still Denmark out in front by 100 meters here in race number 4. Remember, one more fleet race still to go, and then we are scheduled for the event final where only the top 3 teams will compete.
Well, the graphic on our bottom left here, this is Mark 1 versus now. We know that if you're out in front, it's easier to stay in front, but New Zealand, Australia, 4th and 7th now, 2nd and 6th, moving up a little bit through the fleet, and that's really key. In these light conditions, it is hard to move through the fleet. Often, you know, a top team, they can rely on their boat speed or good maneuvers, whereas here, it's just about, oh, just on the top of our screen, we just missed it. Great Britain is foiling on the right-hand side, so it'll be interesting to see if they come back. Green on the top of the wing, that means they're up and foiling. Australia is going to move into that pressure.
So with these winds falling off, the race management has said that it will finish at the leeward gate. So we are down to the final leg here as Denmark should have enough, Stevie, to get to that victory and claim those points as they are on a maneuver right now. Emirates GBR struggling. They were as high as 3rd place, and now they sit in 3rd place still, being threatened now by the Australians who are moving up quickly.
Still worry about that area in the top of the screen. The wind's coming from the right of our screen down, and the problem Great Britain have is they did jump up on the foils, but now they're stuck in under that Cadiz shoreline, and I don't know how that's going to work out for them long term. Our ladder lines, well, it suggests at the moment that it's still tight for Great Britain with New Zealand, but Denmark well set for the finish to the left-hand side of the screen there. Still a couple of 100 metres to go for them. Could be a couple more manoeuvres to do, but they're definitely choosing to minimise the distance. And I think when you're not sure what's coming wind-wise, the one thing you can control is the distance you sail. If you can point towards the next gate, point where you want to go, that's normally a pretty good start to your decision-making process.
I think the Danish did a really good team. They took the mark that they wanted, but then when New Zealand was splitting the other way, they said, okay, let's just hedge it, let's just go the other way as New Zealand, cover them, and it's, you just got to stay between the next mark and the next boat, and they did a really good job of that.
Yeah, and we see here Great Britain, they're not the right-of-way boat. They've had to dip behind Spain. That could be good news for Spain in the battle for the final, though, as this one goes on. The points are changing all the time. There's going to be 2 more manoeuvres at least for United States and Spain. Australia and Great Britain are up to speed, but Denmark, they look good at the moment.
So there is the race to the final, and right now the Americans, as it stands, would get in there on 26 points on a tie, but the win in race number 4 goes the way of Denmark. Nikolai Sehested, in a very calculated race, gets it done in under 10 minutes, 9:47, and it's the clear start that got them out in front. Stevie, they fold momentarily. That's all they needed, and now we'll wait and see who comes in second, third, and fourth, because that will play huge dividends towards what they can do and possibly get into the top 3.
It was a great start, and they just sailed clinically away. New Zealand have done a nice job of minimising distance. I think they should be able to drift across the line in second place here, and it's the big news is Spain and the United States towards the top of our screen. How can they do? How can they get to the finish versus Canada, versus Australia, versus Great Britain, who will have the right of way, but United States look pretty well lined up at the moment, and if they could sneak a third, that'd be huge news for them.
I think what we saw there, we saw Great Britain. I was so excited that they were foiling, but because they went for it, they actually lost all that distance.
So all the teams creeping towards the finish as USA SailGP and their skipper Jimmy Spithill, they will claim third, and that is important because Spain is behind them and they need to pass them on points. So the Americans will take third place, and it looks like Spain is going to come in fourth. And the Canadians right next to them. Imagine that.
Well, that was right. It was a tight moment there, but a brilliant comeback for Spain. We heard Paul Campbell-James saying good decision to take the crossing of the middle of the course. Made a nice gain on board the US there. Forced Great Britain and Australia to go behind them. And as to Lisa's comment, you know, that's a big loss for Great Britain. They were third at the last gate, tried to foil. It looked glorious for a moment, but the glory only lasted so long, and they've dropped right back to 7th here. And it's a disappointing weekend for Great Britain. They're really at damage limitation season-wise now, I'd say. There's no chance of them making the final. And it's going to be a tight battle for that third place, though. I'm pretty sure of that, because Nikolai Sehested wouldn't be too surprised if he's already guaranteed his place in the final for Rockwool, Denmark. But for everyone else, even Australia could now be back in the battle, could be back in the fight for the place in the final, as we see Switzerland and France.
A little drama for 9th and 10th.
A lot of drama back there, Todd, but I think they're going to be really disappointed. Let's not forget, France 4th in season 3, and this tough start to season 4 for them is proving to continue right now.
France winning race number 2 yesterday. They finish in 9th place on race number 4 as the Swiss come across the line in 10th place. So the 4th race, the first race of Championship Sunday, is complete, and it's Denmark that claims the top spot. Well, let's take a look at the standings now after those 4 races. It is Denmark on top with 34 points, Australia in second, and the USA even with Spain. Now, if it ended right here, USA would get the nod because they placed higher in the last race, but they are still in play, as is New Zealand. Tough day for Canada, France, Great Britain, Germany, and Switzerland. Right now we go down on the water and Rockwool, Denmark. Nikolai Sehested, a great race, great way to start Championship Sunday in these light breezes. How were you guys able to get to the front of the pack and get that hole shot at Mark 1?
Yeah, we just noticed a big left shift of the breeze in the start, so it was actually quite nice to be to the windward end of the line and then just being a little bit faster, a little bit more breeze. That just made the roll a lot easier on the fleet before the first mark.
Nikolai, I don't want to take memories back to Saint-Tropez, but you perhaps had a maths issue in Saint-Tropez. Are you guys on top of the results for this next and final race?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but yeah, math is all good. We know the numbers.
Nikolai, I appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck in race number 5 and throughout the rest of the day. So the Danes certainly have looked consistent, not only in the practice day and on Saturday, but they come out swinging here on Championship Sunday. Denmark win the first race of Sunday.
Well, we know it is all about the start, and Denmark absolutely nailed that. They are at the blue end of the line. That is a favoured time at the line, and they had... We thought Great Britain might sneak in there. They had a bit more of a run-up, but it was Denmark that... It was really clinical from there. They took that start. They got to Mark 1 first, and they commanded the race from there. They can lose it, but they did a fantastic job, and I know they'll be happy to lead into race number 5.
Well, and of course, Mark 1, it was Denmark out in front. They got that hull flying and they accelerated away, did a nice job compromising speed against distance. They judged everything really well. Got the best of things there. Great Britain, they did get foiling on the left-hand side of our screen, but ended up sailing a lot of extra distance to do that, which turned out not to be the right move. And Denmark out in front made full use of that space to stay clear, kept things fairly simple as you can. It's a lot easier to do that when you're out in front. And New Zealand, well, they maybe looked a bit of a snail pace, but they minimised distance well, they positioned their boat well, snuck through to second, and that's going to be the story of the day. If you're in space, you might be able to go fast, but make sure you're going fast in the right direction, because you can say with absolute certainty that if you're in the pack, it's pretty hard to get yourself up to the leaders, and you can see that there. Space is your friend. If you're stuck in the pack, there's not a lot of wind, but now we've got a fantastic battle to make it to the final here in Cadiz, because New Zealand have put themselves back in the hunt. New Zealand, USA and Spain going to go head-to-head for the final.
Well, for the Spanish team, this weekend marks a big opportunity to continue their run of strong finishes in Season 4. And for their homegrown talent, these latest results are the byproduct of a lot of hard work and planning to bring this proud nation the results out on the water.
I don't remember the Paseo de Santa Bárbara this crowded. Cadiz is always improving from year to year. It's our 3rd year now, and yeah, just trying to stay close to them so they also see that we truly appreciate everything they do.
Diego and crew lead this Spanish boat away in front of the home fans.
It is really important to be performing for the home crowd, for our country to cheer for us. They're giving us energy, they're giving us the power to really perform under pressure, I'd say. Just getting to the finish line as well in that first race in first position in front of our home crowd, it's been an unbelievable feeling.
Viva la España! Spain takes the win.
Great start for the Spanish, and look at the fans on the shoreline.
As soon as we're going to be performing, everyone will follow, because that's how Spanish people are. They just embrace anything they can if there's a leading and winning team. So that's our duty, and we're really devoted to achieving it.
Championship Sunday here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix, Andalusia, Cadiz, and we are moving on to race number 5. Points are at a premium. Who will make it into the top 3 and make the cut for the event final? We're about to find out. Race number 5 is dead ahead here on the Atlantic.
Well, it's another amazing day out here in Cadiz. I see the fans lining up on the city wall, and there's even more fans out there than yesterday, which I didn't even know was possible. So I'm sure all their cheering is really fueling up Team Spain for this next race into the final. It's a really tricky race course we have out here today, because the city wall, which the fans are on right now, it's creating a big wind shadow out on the left side. So the breeze is much lighter there and a lot more up and down. So I think it's quite risky to see teams go toward that city side. The breeze is a bit lighter than yesterday's racing. It's around 6 knots, which is 11 kilometers an hour. So I think it's just making it all the more important for teams to have their heads and eyes out of the boat, looking 3 steps ahead. Where's the next pressure, and how can we link the next gust upwind, to take the next mark as fast as possible? And I know Team Spain, I'm sure they're beating themselves up a little bit with the damage that they had on racing. They did gain a 4-point penalty under Rule 57, which is reckless sailing and damage to the boat. I think that just really took out any breathing room for their team, and I think they're going to really have to put in a good race in order to make the final in this one. Team New Zealand, they're back in the fight. Who knew? But they had a great race this one, so I'm sure they're looking to get another good one in. You could feel all the energy that the Kiwis had to go racing today. And I didn't know that this was their type of breeze, but they seem to really be performing here. And I think the key is really just your acceleration. How can you start? Especially with this small course, it's important that they got off the line well and can manage to do their maneuvers. So we're going into the next race. The Kiwis are right behind me, so should be a great one. Stay tuned.
An absolute beautiful day here in Spain, despite the light breeze. This is Championship Sunday here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix, Andalusia, Cadiz. Alongside Lisa Darman and Jenny Tulloch and Stevie Morrison, I'm Todd Harris. Glad to have you with us. Well, this stop on the SailGP calendar marks a very important milestone for the league and the athletes that sail these amazing foiling F50 catamarans. Let's take a moment and remember the progress of the Women's Pathway Program. The Spain Sail Grand Prix marks the 2-year anniversary of the Women's Pathway Program. Since the event took place here in 2021, every team in SailGP has had a female athlete on board across every race, striving for gender equality, helping to close the experience gap, and providing an example for aspiring female athletes. This program has directly influenced the evolution of the strategist position on board our F50s, which has become a vital role.
Right hand turn looks good for air pressure.
Yeah, great.
Quite marginal. Optional debout avec l'américain. France coming up.
Give out, setting up. Give out, board drop.
Move to boundary.
Back if we want pressure is good.
The role of the strategist is basically to have the bigger overview of the race course, and my job is to feed that information to the rest of the crew. So it needs to be precise and quick, and I need to know what to say and when to say it.
Getting massive at Yuzu.
Well, we definitely developed a lot since 2 years ago in Cadiz. So at the moment we're developing a strategist screen.
The wing screen's quite a long way away, and so actually we felt like at the back of the boat it'd be really handy to have our own tactical app where we can see it a lot more easily and just then give better comms.
It's right gate by 55.
That's right, Kate, get you one in.
Yep, so we could split here.
Coming out of Olympic sailing, there wasn't a lot of options for me. These type of pathways are absolutely crucial for women's sport. Opens up options for girls that are younger. I mean, I was inspired before I came here and reaching out to some of my fellow women sailors saying how I want to be there one day, and very thankful to be here.
Is the British coming up?
I still think there's room to grow with it. There's a lot of development throughout all the roles, so yeah, it's a really exciting time.
And Olympic silver medalist Lisa Darman, and how important is this program not only to women's sailing but the league in general?
This is massive, as we heard that they've developed so much over the last 2 years, and I think they're inspiring so many women. But also, I can't wait until we see them trimming a wing or flying the boat. That'll be a massive moment.
I just think as well what it's shown is the teams that have embraced it the most and made the most of developing that role has done the best. So it's a huge opportunity, and it's inevitable those changes Lisa talks about are coming.
Absolute progress is coming in SailGP and the Women's Pathway Program. Well, we're getting ready for race number 5, and we'll see what team can do what as we go down on the water. Now we're able to join Blair Tuke on board the New Zealand boat. Blair, you guys are in a hunt for a top 3 spot. What is going to be the key in race number 5 here with these light breezes?
The race is all on now for third for the podium. What's the plan?
Yeah, we've given ourselves a chance. That's what we wanted to do, coming into the first race today. So just need to execute another good start and then sail the boat like we did around that last one.
How were you able to sail it so well in the last race?
I mean, it's really tricky conditions out here, so all about the start really. Managed to get off with Denmark, and then that kind of led us up from there. And yeah, it's definitely pretty mixed conditions out here, so looking forward to getting into the race 5.
Quite the debrief you just had there on board with the 4 of you. What was the plan for the next race?
I just want to have a quick sum up of the last race. Obviously it was a good one for us, but there's still some things we can do to sail the boat more accurately. It's really hard to keep the flow on the wing sail and keep the boats heading in the right direction. So just all 4 of us working together, keeping the flow nice, keeping a good tempo on the comms. Wind's still shifting around a bunch, so need to make sure we got the boat in the right position as well. But do all those things and get a good start, that easy.
And on the water with Blair Tuke and Liv Mackay on board the New Zealand team. So they're talking about this race number 5 and what they've got to expect in these light breezes. So we go to the pre-start now at 3:20, Stevie, so plenty of time. Lisa, where would you like to be in this situation with the breeze and the conditions that they are?
I think we're going to see a really similar start to what we saw before. It is about having a fantastic lineup and really good speed at the start. So clear air and good speed is going to be the key.
So the entire fleet now in the start box as we are under 3 minutes to go. And the winners of race number 4, the first race of today, Denmark. And earlier we had a chance to talk with Nikolaj Sehested and got his thoughts on today's racing conditions and the course.
We learned a lot from Sunday in Toronto in terms of sailing this light H2 mode, so we're pretty confident we have speed now, and so we're just going to do more of the same consistency. Hopefully just a few top 4, top 5s will stay us consistent until the final.
And for the 3-time reigning and defending champions, Australia, Tom Slingsby and his team, what can they do? They're in a position right now to move on, but can they stay there with these light breezes?
I've said that it would be great to have Denmark and Spain in the final with you because I thought that we might have a good chance, but they proved us wrong in LA. They both beat us in LA, and I was overconfident there for sure. And so I'm never going to underestimate the teams again. I know that any team here can beat us in a final race, and they've done that a lot recently. So we've just got to focus on ourselves, get the best start, and try to win.
1:45 to go before the start of the final fleet race, and here it is, the race to the final. Remember, only the top 3 teams are in there. You see the USA and Spain tied. The tiebreaker at this point would go to the USA because they had higher placing in the last race, but Stevie, that will all change here in race 5.
It will, and let's not forget in 5th, they're not on our screen there, but they're on just 25 points is New Zealand. So in fact, if New Zealand finishes just 1 place ahead of the USA and Spain, New Zealand will be into that final. So it's whoever beats whoever between USA, Spain and New Zealand. Australia can't afford a bad result, and Nikolaj Sehested assured us that the Danish had done all their maths. Now I think they just need to avoid finishing last. So anyway, here we go, minute coming up, and this is already into some serious positioning.
And Lisa, there should be plenty of teams out there that would love to play spoiler. They might not make it in the event finally, but they'd love to ruin someone else's day.
I think it's going to be hard when you have who beats who. It's really about sailing your own race and trying to get out in front and stay in front. I think the Danish, they'll just be trying to stay out of trouble because I know they missed that final, and that was super disappointing.
This is the umpires. Penalties Switzerland, relative USA, windward boat not keeping clear.
Well, it sounds like it is going to be staying out of trouble for everybody. We've seen so many boat-on-boat situations, and not getting penalties before the start is a key.
Everyone trying to get that key spot, Stevie's. We're under 30 seconds to go.
Really tricky position for the US at the top of the line here. Now Switzerland need to be starting out behind. They're in a tough position here. 17 seconds to go, and Switzerland are going to struggle here. They're not allowed in there. Might have to go over the line early. Denmark could shut the US out at the top of the line as well. Very tricky for the USA. Spain, can they find a gap? New Zealand are well positioned, but they're slow in the middle of the line. It's an acceleration battle now. Clear start, really good start. Australia well positioned, Denmark well positioned. Can New Zealand get that boat accelerated? If they do, then they will be on the inside coming into Mark 1, but it's all about boat speed and acceleration now, and Rockwool Denmark, they're doing it again. Hulls flying highest, and look at the speed on that Danish boat.
Yeah, close, we're not there yet, but we're close. This is weekend. We're going to be hitting anyway, so just ticket, I guess.
And Rockwool Denmark has put themselves in a prime position for the second race in a row. Race number 5 is off and heading towards mark number 1, with the Danes once again leading it.
Denmark and Australia, this is exactly what they need, and for New Zealand it's a pretty picture at the moment. Wallowing in the background is the hometown heroes, Spain. USA, left-hand side of our screen, they're out the back as well. We should see Denmark lead away. We do, and they're up and foiling on board Rockwool Denmark. The Australians coming round in second, but most importantly in our race to the final, it's New Zealand in that big battle that get round in third, just ahead of Canada. Can they hang on and stay ahead of that US boat?
Wow, I've got to wonder though, Stevie, if Switzerland had not pulled off and maybe relinquished that penalty earlier instead of trying to go forward, if the Americans had a better run at it.
Oh, the US certainly found themselves in a tight battle, but that's the game. There's 10 boats on the fleet. You can only control your world. US were in a pretty risky position to start with, and as we can see at the moment, 2 points behind New Zealand. However, as our screen shows us, top of the screen, New Zealand dropping back to 4th, United States 5th, and the next decision by those 2 boats could define the race.
I think right now with USA and New Zealand, it's who beats who. So the job for New Zealand right now is not to try and win the race, but to stay in front of USA.
It's tight though. There's a lot of congestion in that pack. Look at the advantage you get when you're out in front. Now, don't get me wrong, Denmark are doing a fantastic job, but the reason they're that far ahead is they're sailing in clear wind. They're able to sail their angles. They're not thinking about boat-on-boat battles. And at gate 2, nearly 200 meters ahead, and that's going to probably be somewhere near 45 seconds advantage. Brilliant from Sir Hested and his crew, and he shouldn't need to do much maths if he can keep the boat going smoothly here.
Yeah, maybe. Let's just see. Happy when you're there for the minute to go.
I mean, I know we're not at the final yet, but the thing is, this gives them a lot of confidence.
Right.
They've had really good starts, and they're executing that first foiling pop. So I think for everybody else, seeing Denmark that far out in front, you know, it's fantastic to see. They've been so fast all season, and they've made errors, but they've nailed it so far.
And what do you? I've always think that going into these final, momentum's the key, and it's really interesting. Denmark 2 in a row. They just look on it.
I mean, Australia has also looked quite good today, but the boat that they need to beat is the one that's, you know, hundreds of meters out in front. So I think knowing that you can execute is key.
So those are the qualifying teams as it stands right now. It would be Denmark and Australia in, and New Zealand would get the third and final position. So if you're cheering for Team USA, you're hoping that they can get past Canada and possibly move up by New Zealand to get those points back. But as it stands now, the Kiwis would be the third and final boat into the event final, which is coming up shortly.
USA pushed themselves too wide on the course. They're left-hand side of our screen there, and they've dropped right back. They will set themselves up, I imagine, for a right turn, but New Zealand, it looks pretty good for them at the moment. They're going to follow round in third just, but there's no foiling going on out here, really. Denmark gave us a brief glimmer of foiling, but it's really not the day for that. It's the day for sensible decision-making and keeping the boat gliding along. Canada have done a nice job. New Zealand, they're going to go left. Jimmy Spithill, well, he's going to roll the dice. I anticipate a right turn for USA, and who's going to find more wind could be in the lap of the gods after this gate 2.
I think in this light wind as well, it is obviously you need to go fast, but it's about sailing less distance, and that's why New Zealand were able to leg out on USA there.
So the Americans are going to take that right-hand turn, and they're going to follow Canada around and hopefully find some kind of breeze coming off that city seawall here in Cadiz, because they need some magic and they need some wind in a big-time way.
Okay, my wheel. Just trying to hold high line, high wing. Let go.
There we go, Jimmy Spithill there, just trying to stay. He's trying to sail the boat as close to the wind as possible, because they have followed the Canadians round here. And if you're following someone, you're in their turbulent, disturbed wind, you can't go as fast. So for USA now, it's all about absolute silky smooth. Will they find more wind? It looks pretty good on board Canada at the moment, showing 20 kilometers an hour, just 8 on board the Kiwi boat. Faster you go, the better you go. And at the moment, it's USA sitting in third, and they're showing us in the final ahead of New Zealand. But we know that it should just be a case of who beats who with New Zealand and the United States.
So that is the battle. Meanwhile, way out in front, having no issues whatsoever, traveling at 22 kilometers an hour and flying one hole. That is Rockwell, Denmark. They won the first race of today. They came off a strong performance yesterday. Lisa, this goes all the way back to Friday during training, where they were consistent across the board, top 3 in every race.
Yeah, the Danish team, they've looked super strong in these light conditions. We've got the 24-metre all-purpose wing. They seem quite comfortable in these conditions with this configuration. We're hoping that we're going to have the 29-metre wing back as the design team make a few more tweaks to mitigate any risk of reoccurrence of an issue. So fingers crossed we've got that back. But the Danish team, they love this configuration.
How big of a difference, Stevie, would it make if the 29-metre wings were out there right now?
I think you'd see them happily getting up onto hull 1. It is compromised with everything. There's a lot more horsepower, but there's a bit more weight. So it's all power to weight. There's more power, but there's more weight. So, you know, we might be just seeing some slightly higher speeds. I'm not sure we'd see a lot more foiling. But the key thing now is about what happens at the top of this course. Left-hand side of our screen is New Zealand. Top right-hand corner, USA. They're the main protagonists for our battle to the final here. As we see Denmark, they come round. They've turned right at the top. One turn, and they're close to the finish here. Just leg 4 of 5. There's not a long way to go to the finish here, Todd, and it's quite a crucial manoeuvre. I think the course favours a right turn at this top gate because it will save you a manoeuvre.
They actually have a shorter leg here, so that yellow mark we can see in the middle of the screen, that is going to be their turning mark to the finish. So actually not bad strategy by the Danish team, and Australia will follow that. But USA on the top of our screen, 21 kilometres per hour, and they've got a hull up. So tight decision here with New Zealand.
Really tight. New Zealand will try and turn in front of them. New Zealand will have the right of way when these two boats meet at the top here, but it's often about who's going fastest. Can the Kiwis get the boat up to speed? Good news for Denmark. Good news for Australia. They're actually up and foiling on board the Australian boat, and it's tight here. Really, really tight. It's going to come down to a match race manoeuvre between New Zealand and the United States at this final gate.
So while Denmark gets through the last gate before the finish line, all eyes on the Kiwis and the Americans. The Americans on the top right of your screen coming in at 22 kilometers an hour. And now the Kiwis, they've got to speed up now above 20.
Good advantage USA here. They're going to probably be behind, but they turn down. I'm surprised he's turned down early here. That allows New Zealand to shut the door on them. I thought he might have held wide and looked to roll the next manoeuvre ahead. United States, I think, have trapped themselves here. They're faster, but they've put themselves on the outside. Could be an early manoeuvre for the Kiwis. I think that's a mistake by the USA. He had the speed and he's just allowed the door to be shut by the Kiwis.
Denmark gets the win as they cross the finish line. Australia will finish in second, but all eyes on New Zealand and the USA, 4th and 5th. Whoever wins the battle between those two boats will be moving on to the event final.
Oh, and the USA jibe right, and Kiwis jibe right in front of the British. That could be a mistake by New Zealand here. They've trapped themselves. Big error by the Kiwis, massive error. Advantage USA. Oh, the Kiwis, that was an unforced error. They had United States locked outside of them there. 2 mistakes by 2 of the most experienced skippers in the fleet, but the battle's back on. Penalty to New Zealand. They're going to have to lose 20 metres here. Oh, what a costly error, but the United States are still on the outside. There's plenty of this to play. Oh, I can't believe what we've just seen here.
So New Zealand's going to have to get around that gate that you see Canada at right now. Meanwhile, the Americans are coming in and their speed is building. Actually, now it's dropping back to 15. Was 17, back to 15. And look at the Kiwis. They're down at 11.
They've got 2 more manoeuvres to do as well, Todd. That's the problem for New Zealand here. No more manoeuvres for the United States. They're just going around the outside. I can't believe that's happened. Jimmy Spittle, he stayed very calm after that initial mistake at the top gate, and the US have slipped around the outside. Wow.
So the Americans go from making the final to not making the final. Now it looks like they will make the final if they can get around this gate and follow Canada in and finish in 4th place, 1 position ahead of New Zealand. That final in the event final will be theirs.
It's a straight shot to the finish from here, Todd. So Denmark have finished, Australia have finished, Canada, good final result for the Canadians with a 3rd place finish. But wow.
Oh, that worked out well.
Paul Campbell-James getting a little assist. They may be buying dinner for Great Britain.
Yeah, didn't know it was a comedy afternoon there. CJ's called that right. Wow, tight here. France have got to give room for Great Britain, and it's really close. Big tight moment. He's got right to be in there on board Great Britain. And then Ainsley's played spoiler for the Kiwis here. That could be massive in the season overall. Of course, Ben Ainsley, he is there racing the whole way to San Francisco, remember, in season 4. But yeah, big moment there by New Zealand. Got themselves trapped on the British. And all of a sudden, it's just gone inside out.
We were never going to be able to drive ourselves. I wonder if they thought we were going to roll us before.
So how do you like this? The Americans go from in it to out, and they are back in again. 2 events in a row, and the Americans just barely slide into the event final.
Danish setting for the pot for the first group, like what their rudders are on that pot.
So what we're hearing there, we're hearing the USA team calling their coach ashore, saying, can you check what those Danish settings are? Because they want to know how to get that hull up and foiling as soon as possible for this final.
That's some pretty sensible decision-making there as we see New Zealand. Oh, there's a bit of afters going on between New Zealand and Great Britain. Not in your race, but you're in your season.
Exactly, and I know that Great Britain, they're not going to make this final, but the Kiwis, they're a huge risk to this final. We know that they're fast. They've missed out on the last event, so yeah, every point counts, and that's what we're seeing. Doesn't matter if you're not in the race. If you can take a penalty and ruin someone's day, you would.
Yeah.
Well, Ben Ainsley would, that's for sure.
And we talked about that, Lisa, that everyone getting desperate and who would love to, hey, I'm not going to make it, but I can ruin my enemy's day. And not saying they're enemies, but welcome back to the league, Pete Burley.
I think it was an interesting move. They jibed a bit early, in my opinion. Not sure why they did that. But, I mean, obviously it was a mistake in hindsight, and we've got the beauty of looking at it from up here. But, you know, it was a tough call. Is it racing rust?
We heard Paul Campbell-James say, I was surprised they went. We couldn't jibe. We were on the outside. So I just think, you know, I feel it all got very rushed. There was a couple of odd decisions by both teams, but that's irrelevant now.
Along the seawall, the Spanish get a cheer from their fans, and it's hard to believe they went from race number 1 winning to race number 5 finishing in last place. So the Spanish will not make the event final, nor will the Swiss. It is as tight as it can get down to the final spot. Only the top 3 teams on point make it into the final. So one thing we do know, Denmark is in, Australia is in, and now it is confirmed that the USA and Jimmy Spittle have done just enough to get themselves into the final. So there you go. The official results: Rockwell, Denmark, Australia, and USA. They are in to the final. New Zealand, Canada, Spain, France, Emirates GBR, Germany, and Switzerland will have a front row view of that final, but they will not be participating in the event final. We go on board with New Zealand. Peter Burley, we welcome you back to SailGP, and boy, no one was giving you guys any presence there on that last race. Take us through what happened there with you, the Americans, and Emirates GBR.
Yeah, well, we obviously didn't have the best first run and kind of ended up on the wrong side of that second Pete. I think we did a really good job to get back to the Americans, and then we're just setting up for a jibe to the last mark, and Ben obviously got a nice puff hooked up and just took it on below us. So, we thought it was pretty easy for him to come up and take our transom like you'd normally do on opposite legs, but it wasn't to be, and it's 4th for us this weekend, but a good way to bounce back.
Yeah, it feels like a good way to bounce back, Pete. And do you just think that that's kind of a sign of SailGP now, that we're racing all the way to the season finale, and even if they are on a different leg or at the back of a fleet, you're still looking out for each other?
Yeah, well, I think you'll see how little battles within the fleet unfold with like what's going on with Spain and Canada at the moment. We think you've got to have always better to have friends and enemies out here, but we felt it was a bit unnecessary.
Pete, appreciate your time. Congratulations on a good show, and it's great to have you guys back at SailGP. We'll see you in Dubai. So Peter Burley and the Kiwis finish in 4th place, so a nice bounce back for them after that wing disaster for them in Saint-Tropez. And here we go. Take a look at this analysis.
Well, the start was pretty chaotic. The Swiss were peeled out. USA, it seemed like they were really struggling, and for Spain, they were struggling. Rockwell, Denmark, I mean, they seem to have the bit between their teeth today, Lisa.
Yeah, I think the Danish team getting that start and getting popping foiling, they just look so comfortable doing it, and that has been really the key. But I think this was definitely the defining moment for the race. The Kiwis, you know, USA made a mistake by trying to duck behind them. Kiwis got back in front, but then the mistake came with the jibe. Now, I'm not sure if they didn't see them or they jibed too early or they thought USA was going to sneak around them. There's a lot of things at play here, but you know, this was really the moment of the race for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here, and I think probably they must have thought the US could have turned inside and been able to block their route down to the next mark, because right here I felt it was control New Zealand. Quite logical to make the turn towards the next mark, but you've got to see the other boat coming up, and left-hand side of screen, Great Britain, here they come. As Pete said, maybe Ben could have gone behind, but he had them pretty well lined up, and it wasn't necessarily an easy decision, but there you go. I think this just shows us everyone in the fleet is racing hard, and it all counts. There we go. Bit of feedback from Ben Ainsley. Clearly got a bit tasty on board the boats, but reset, USA have slid into the final, and it's going to be an interesting final race.
Well, we know that USA are going to look at the data with their coach, but we're going to look at the data now. What makes Denmark so fast? Well, they had the fastest speed. It's not super quick, but 20.4 kilometers per hour and 9% flight time. That doesn't sound much at all, but compared to zeros and ones and threes, that's what you want. Australia looking at minimising their manoeuvres, but we know finals can be super different. So it will be interesting to see what the strategy is for this start. There's a lot more space on the line, so it'll be interesting to see who gets that hull up and gets foiling.
Well, it's a quick turnaround, and the coaches now are doing the mad crunch of numbers. Denmark, Australia, and USA trying to get as much data as they can down to their teams to figure out what the settings they will need as they enter into the last race, the final, the event final here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix Andalusia Cadiz.
Well, what a fantastic second race that was. I feel like the last few events, it's been such nail-biting finishes to see who's going to make that event final. So we're going to see the Denmark team, Australian team, and the US team into the last race of the day. And I've just been so impressed with the Danish recently. I mean, across the board, they're the most consistent team out of this fleet. And I'm just super happy to see them in probably their first final of the season, and I'm really pushing for them to get an event win, because that would be their first event win of the season, and I think of all time. So I'm really rooting for them here. I think the goal for this type of racing and this really tricky light stuff is you gotta make a tough choice on if you're going to try to pop or if you want to stay H1 with only one hull in the water, because we've seen a lot in the last two races where teams who try to pop, they lose a lot of distance because you have to gain enough speed, around 31 kilometers an hour, in order to pop on the foil. And so teams generally have to come up to a wider angle to hit those speeds, and they end up losing a lot of distance. So I think it's going to be a big decision, you know, who's going to make that risky call of, you know, let's try to pop and attack these other boats, or let's go shorter distance straight to the mark, but only one hull in the water and much slower. So let's see, you know, who's going to fight it out with Australia here. You know, they didn't have a perfect race this weekend, but they definitely stayed very consistent. So I'm curious to see who's going to get into the fight and who's going to leave the door open for the other team. I see Australia fully foiling. Actually, all the teams are fully foiling right now, right before the start. So it should be a great race right about now.
And then there was one. We are down to the final race, the event final here at the last day of the Spain Sail Grand Prix Andalusia Cadiz. Alongside Stevie Morrison and Lisa Darman and Jenny Tulloch, I'm Todd Harris. Glad to have you with us. So here we go, the last race of this regatta here in Spain, and we've got 3 class programs. The Americans get in for the 2nd event in a row at the last moment. Jimmy Spithill brings a lot of experience and a lot of talent to the show, of course, with those 2 America's Cup wins, and he has been a part of this program for a long time. Also making the final, the 3-time reigning and defending champions. Need I say more? The Aussies. Tom Slingsby has been around 10 world titles. Of course, he's got an America's Cup title too as well. And look at that. SailGP Fleet Races won 41 in all. And the newcomers of the program, but the most consistent this weekend here in Spain, Nikolai Sehested. Not a lot of wins in Spain's SailGP or the America's Cup, but he has learned quickly, and his crew is really starting to come together quite nicely at the perfect time. So we go down on the water now as the Americans get themselves into position. Jimmy Spithill and company with 4 on board. Jimmy, for the 2nd event in a row, you guys just get in by the skin of your teeth, but the bottom line is you're in the event final. What do you do now to get the win?
Oh, never in doubt, Todd. Been confident the whole way.
Jimmy, at the finish of that last race, we heard Paul Campbell-James call back ashore to ask for some thoughts on what Denmark were doing so well. What are Denmark doing so well?
They seem to be able to get on the foils before anyone else. So, yeah, we just asked Philippe and tried to have a look. They seem to be really fast in these conditions. Hey, board's going.
Okay, nice job of sitting on the fence, Jimmy. Thanks very much for your time and appreciate the input.
So we'll let the Americans get themselves into position. That is a great sign right there. Their boat up and foiling, so we could see some wind out there and possibly throughout this final race. Remember, just 3 boats will be competing as we go back on the water now. And Australia, Tom Slingsby, you are back in the final yet again, looking for that elusive victory here. Is today the day you guys get it?
Yeah, trimming up. I hope so. It's tough conditions. The Danish are sailing well, but yeah, I don't think anyone wants it more than us. We really want to win here and got to try to get a good start. And the breeze is filled in a bit right now and we're able to foil again. Hopefully it stays.
Well, Tom, I can see you got Jason Waterhouse on the grinding there. What's that decision about?
Oh, you know, I think Kinley Fowler was getting a bit tired, and Jason, with the bigger arms, said, "I'll take over from here," and yeah, we had to obey.
Kyle, real quick question. The Danish seem to have a bit of an edge today. Do you know what they're doing differently to you out there?
Yeah, I think they're starting better than us and staying on the foils. So I think the breeze is built a little bit, and it's all going to be about the start and who can get the Mark 1 first and get the boat on the foil.
Thanks very much. Well, good luck, team, and look forward to watching the race.
So the Australians, we've heard from them, we've heard from the Americans, and just a short time ago, Jenny Tulloch down on the water, caught up with Nikolai Sehested, the driver for Denmark.
You guys have been fast all weekend. I guess some of that's to the wing trimmer. What's the secret?
Just practice. We've just been working hard, looking at the data between the events, and had a lot of work to do from Toronto, so just working hard.
A lot of it to the strategy as well today, especially the starts have been fantastic. What has been your strategy?
I think just get a good start in the first row is always a good thing, but the team is just doing really well to just manage that risk, because the risk is needed today. And yeah, just good effort from all teams, like all the members on the team is doing everything we can to get a good Sunday.
This morning, Nikolai said he needed top 4s to get into the finals. It's been top 1s, but now what's the thought for the final itself?
It's very different, the final. Now it's only 3 boats, so I mean, I'm sure a lot of boats are going to be fighting for up the line, get the best angle, so I don't know, I'm sure he's got a plan back there, so I'll leave it up to him at the moment.
Yeah, all in. It's never holding back in the final. It's yeah, it's a different race, so we're ready.
And our thanks for Anne-Marie Rendon and Tom Johnson for taking time before the event final. So everyone wants to know, what is the weather going to be like? Will there be wind? Will there be foiling? For that, we go down on the water, the fourth member of our broadcast team, and check in with Jenny Tulloch.
You know, Todd, it's really been phasing this afternoon. The breeze went up, the breeze has been down a little. The last race we saw it down, and hopefully now we're seeing it in a slightly more up phase. So for these 3 boats, I think we know that Rockwell is fast, but they've also really been able to get out in front and stay away from the melee. I don't know if they're doing anything any better than anyone else except just have their own breeze. So we'll see whoever really can get off the start line, I think probably has the best option of getting out in front, staying on those foils the longest.
Jenny, you have the best seat in the house, so we're going to go to you first. What's your prediction? You've seen them all weekend long. Who do you like in this one to take the victory?
Oh, you know, I would love to say Rockwell, SailGP Team Denmark, but I honestly think you could hear it in Slingsby's voice. He might really actually want it more badly than anyone else. So I give it to the Aussies in a fist fight. I think they're ready for it.
And speaking of the Aussies, I'll turn to Lisa Darman. And Lisa, it's hard to believe the Australians lead the overall, but so far they've got a second, a third, a second, and a second. Do you think this is the race where they get the first?
Well, I think in general we haven't seen the Aussies perform in the light breeze. They've missed out a few times, but it would be a first win for Denmark as well. So I think that they want it just as badly as Australia.
Yeah, I think, Stevie, Denmark would love to get one here. They are due for one. And with the way they've been sailing, the consistency, as I mentioned to Lisa, even from practice day, they've looked good every day.
Yeah, I think, you know, Rockwell, Denmark can perhaps often come across as the good guys and the nice guys. I don't see that in this race. I think they've got an edge. All the other teams are looking at them. I think if you're the people copying, you're slightly on the back foot. But, you know, one of the heaviest punchers in sailing's Jimmy Spittle there. He's, you know, going to be he would have been so close to winning in Taranto. Everyone out is hungry. I don't think there's anything to be done about that. We can see there Jimmy. He's got Erica at the back there. She's been doing a fantastic job fighting her way through the fleet, and she's going to have a lot more space in this race now. I think the difference with this 3-boat final, it is different. Great job by the US, but still my money goes Denmark.
Okay, so Stevie's going Denmark. We heard Australia for Jenny Tulloch, Lisa Darmanin. You are thinking?
I think I'm going to have to go Denmark as well. I think they're just performing so well, and they've got the form. And as we said, momentum is everything going into this final.
I think I might go Denmark as well, because you know what? They've only gotten 4th. That's the worst position they've had. But you know what? When Jimmy Spithill says he was never in doubt, I guess I'll go with Jimmy Spithill and the Americans.
Well, they do. And look at this lineup here. I mean, interesting change. Lisa alluded to it. Normally when Australia go 4 people on board, they have Kinley Fowler. They've chosen to go with a flight controller of Jason Waterhouse. So if they are up and foiling, that could be a stronger lineup. But it's a change.
So 2:10 to go before the start of the final race here in Spain, and there are the team, there is the boat, I should say, that has been the most consistent across the board. The worst race they have had was a 4th, and that came way back on race number 2 on day number 1, and they have looked prime. Talk about momentum, Stevie, coming into this. They've won the last 2 races easily, and they've got a strong lineup.
They have. They've looked really good. I mean, Tom Johnson's obviously had a bit more hair growth since then, looking at that last interview. But I think, yeah, Raz Kosma, the flight controller, I think, you know, those two, Raz and Tom, they've had the boat going really fast. And then for Nikolai and Anne-Marie, it makes it a bit easier to position things. There's more space. I can't emphasize how much of a difference it is with 3 boats, especially in this light winds. That extra space, they're a little bit more wind, so they're foiling a bit more comfortably. Potentially the change to Jason Waterhouse is the key.
We are seeing a lot of teams bring their flight controller on now to help with that 4-person on board. So Jason will fly the boat, and then they'll jump into the grinding and help the strategist, the female athlete, with the grinding, especially now that there's more wind. There's more pressure on the flight controllers. There wasn't much when they weren't foiling, but there's also more pressure on the grinding to make sure that you can move the wing and get the most out of the boat.
Settle in. We're a minute away from the event final here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix. It's Australia, the USA, and Denmark to do battle on the Atlantic.
Well, interesting that you make that point then, because USA, Jimmy Spittle will be flying the boat. Mac Agnes, he is a grinder, so there's more horsepower potentially at the front of the US boat. Could help in this initial acceleration phase. Late turn in there by Rockwell, Denmark. They block that. They're taking control of the situation. They're well lined up. Oh, racing. That means the boats are feeling late. USA, Jimmy Spittle, mistake outside the boundary. He's going to have to start behind the fleet. It doesn't look like that's going to be a problem right now. I think they're all late. That's great news for Rockwell, Denmark. The favoured end of the line is signified by our blue position triangle down there. That's the pole position mark, and Denmark, look at them heading up to it. It's 10 seconds to go. Rockwell, Denmark winded up. They're some 50 metres out ahead. 5 seconds to go. How's your timing, Nikolai Serhested, as he comes in? Watch for the line to turn white. clear start. Big mistake by Australia, big mistake by USA, and Rockwool Denmark, they're going to be in first position at Mark 1.
And the Dane magic continues in the event final. Look at that start, the biggest they've seen all weekend long as they approach mark number 1 in the event final. It is Denmark, Australia, and the USA, and the Danes have been spotted a huge lead right off the gate.
We go, first Italian down now. It's time to keep it simple. What's the heart rate like on board that Danish boat? First time they've led one of these finals for a while. It was season 3 back in Plymouth where they last led, but now they've got a chance to keep it simple. It's lighter winds in under that Cadiz shoreline. We can see the speed dropping off for Rockwool Denmark. What are the boats behind going to choose to do? It's about minimising manoeuvres, I think, right now. Australia stay following. Denmark are slow, though. They're off the foils. USA first to turn, could stay foiling on board the US boat. Can they keep it up in the air? It's close, really close. Jimmy Spittle on the handles there. He's done a fantastic job of staying foiling. Expect a lead change. It's got really light under the Cadiz shoreline.
Down, please. Good angle there. Hold that.
USA, their wing has lit them up green, which means they can pop and foil. 34, they should be foiling, no problem here. The problem with Denmark and Australia is they're fighting each other, and as soon as you get in a fight with another boat, you're in trouble.
Do not want to get in a fight with Tom Slingsby as well.
Well, and you could see, I think perhaps one of the advantages of being the boat behind is when a boat's ahead sail into less wind, you can see that and you can manoeuvre away. So it was possibly an obvious decision for the US, a less obvious decision for Rockwool, but Jimmy Spittle, great decision making, saw Denmark get slow, saw them get into less wind and thought, I'm not going there. First to turn, stayed in more wind, and look at this, nearly a 200-meter gain.
So the Danes throwing away a beautiful start and the Americans pick up the golden ticket. Prime opportunity for USA SailGP to take control of this race and possibly get their first event win final of the year.
We're on board here. It's going to be interesting here, though, because it was that Cadiz shoreline where the US are sailing to now that the Danes found less wind. So US are going back there. It's interesting how far they push in. Very, very light winds on board the Danes and the Australians at the moment.
I think what happens is when we see a split here, obviously USA have quite a nice lead, but if you do split from the other boats in this light wind, it's really hard to get back to the other side, so you're sort of committed. We saw USA love this side last time. That's what got them back into the race and essentially into the final.
So on this course, Stevie, can the Americans go as far as they dare go close to that shoreline where there's less breeze and then one shot straight to the next gate?
I think they're going to have to do 2 from here, but we can see the wind has rotated quite a long way round to the bottom right-hand corner of our screen. So at the moment, the Americans are sailing an angle nearly parallel to the shoreline, which means they're progressing up the course really well. What they can see that we can't is the wind on the water ahead of them. We can't see that. Now, you'd assume that if they're continuing that way, that's because they can see wind there. They're going to have to do a few manoeuvres. Here we go. They're setting up to manoeuvre now, and it's perfectly timed because Denmark are turning left here. They're going to have to be careful of the Australians. The Australians would be entitled to dive inside if it gets tight. Could really play into the US hands, as Lisa says. When these two boats are fighting, it just gets worse and worse. I think Denmark will be round ahead, but they're a long way behind. Look at that, top left-hand side, 350 metres ahead. Oh, you can't help but feel for the Danish.
Well, we said that Denmark, Australia would want it most, but you know, USA, they've had a pretty tough year, so I'm sure they really would love this win, and they're 24 kilometres per hour. If they hit that 28, they might be up and foiling, and they could just be away from there.
The Americans without the services of Hans Hanken, who is injured, and we wish him the very best in his recovery. And right now, they are going to give him a nice present to help with that recovery because the Americans have a monster lead. Now, Denmark and Australia have both gone around that gate too, and we'll see if they get any kind of pressure to try to track down the Americans.
And if we look at the numbers down the bottom of our screen, foiling percentage 46 compared to Denmark and Australia at 22 and 23. So that is essentially what has got them out in front by hundreds of metres.
You see that US boat. He's trying to squeeze the boat as close to the wind as possible. He's trying to point it as close to the next gate as he can. Look at that. They're going slowly, but they're going straight where they want to go. And if they can just make it round this gate 3, then they're going to be in really good shape.
Such a tight margin here, Stevie, as they go to gate number 3. Jimmy is going to try to get as close as he can to that buoy on the right-hand side, and then he will turn and go downwind, and he should get some more pressure. Lisa, have they learned their lesson from not going close to the shore now? Will they stay farther offshore, and will they be able to foil?
I think they'll stay further offshore, and what they will do is, because they have such a good lead, as soon as the next boat makes it to the mark, they'll calculate where they are on the course and whether they need to cover, essentially. But what I think we'll see here is we'll see one jibe and straight to the gate, and minimising manoeuvres in these conditions is absolutely key.
Well, how much money are we giving to Philippe Presti back on shore? Paul Campbell-James said, what are the Danish up to? And it seems like that computer up in the Oracle Cloud, they did have the numbers, because it's a huge improvement by this US boat. As we can see, heading upwind, Australia are foiling. They're up and going, but it could be a bit too little too late in terms of the race for the final. But points matter for the season, and the Australians will want to be ahead of Denmark, that's for sure.
Oh, this has got to be painful, as the Australians and the Danes are still heading upwind. The Americans foiling, going downwind as their lead continues to grow with the speed that they're carrying, Stevie. This is a thing of beauty if you're a fan of Team USA. They needed a small break. They started the race off with a penalty at the back of the field, and then as the Australians and the Danes got together and did battle, the Americans shot past.
They did, and here we go. Australia just parked the boat straight in front of Denmark. Can the Danes stay clear? They're going to be sailing in turbulent wind from the Australian wing, but they're up and foiling, which gives them a few more options. They're nearly 700 metres behind the lead, but the battle for second will be real. Tom Slingsby does not like to lose any battles, and he now is not on the foil, but Denmark must keep clear. They've got to be careful here. The Australians can turn them up towards the wind as much as they want. Expect an aggressive move from Tom Slingsby. Turns it up hard. Look out here. Rockwool, Denmark. There's going to be a potential incident. That was so tight. Slingsby, that was aggressive. Really, really aggressive. Trying to just push the Danes up into the air.
And look at this, the Americans at gate 4, they are already heading back upwind. Not a lapping situation, but Jimmy Spithill now can take chances out on the course lead. He's going to go closer to the shore, possibly seeing some pressure out there.
I think we have seen the day change quite a lot. As we said, the wind has rotated around. It's more pressure than we saw, more wind than the previous race, and it seems to suit the USA team.
As the Americans continue to sail away, let's go down on the water. Jenny Tulloch, you've got the best seat in the house. I know you saw this coming.
I don't think anyone saw this coming with Team USA out in the back with a penalty off the start, but maybe Ben Ainsley saw it yesterday when he said he had horrible starts and he almost wished instead of being in the pack, he was just out the back where he could be clear and make his own decisions, and that's ultimately what happened for Jimmy Spithill and Paul Campbell-James, just being able to jibe at that first mark and run away with it. But fun to see that little match race scenario just then with Rockwool, Denmark SailGP team, and Australia trying to be aggressive, but Nikolai, you know, he's also world match racing champion, so he could just pick enough distance to stay high enough to foil over the top of them to avoid Tommy and not get the penalty. And you know, it's hard to stay ahead at the moment, but it looks like they're still staying ahead. They're still foiling, at least on this downwind.
And you talk about lonely, out in the middle of the Atlantic, almost all by themselves is Team USA. The Americans going to mark number 5. They'll make that turn on that gate, and there's the finish line just up against the wall, and it'll be celebrations for the Stars and Stripes as Jimmy Spithill and company, 4-person crew, Stevie, they get it done. They took the chance with Jimmy Spithill driving and flying the boat.
They're doing a great job. They've made the choice, tactical chase. They can see the power going in on the handles there. Eric Reinecke and Mac Agnese really putting down the horsepower. That means you can trim the wing a lot more. You can get the maximum out of the boat. And look, they're pretty happy on board there. They were so close in Taranto, Todd, but right now it's looking pretty good.
They are the new fearsome foursome of the Atlantic Ocean. It's Jimmy Spithill and the USA SailGP team. They come to Spain and they claim the victory.
Bosh! Perfect. What a landing in front of the fans, and what a race they put together there.
From a penalty in the start box to victory by a massive distance. Look at this. That's how far back second and third is, with Denmark just getting around that gate. And the Americans are going to have plenty of time to celebrate before the other members of the final come across the line. Lisa, that was a dominant performance just when you thought it was all Rockwell, the darlings of Cadiz, and they get tangled up with Australia, and it's game on.
Well, in the end, you only need to win one race, and the USA team did that. If we take you back to Cadiz last year, they just missed out. It was a photo finish with France, so a little bit of a revenge there, and, you know, fantastic to see. I think it's also these 3-boat finals. You've got to stay out of trouble, and when you get hooked in these battles, it just lets the other boat sail away. But it's exciting for us to watch different battles throughout the fleet, I think. And overall season points, we know every point counts. We saw the final last year. You know, 1 point decides who's in that top 3. So they will fight all the way to the end here, Australia and Denmark.
Turning on board the Australian boat there, Nina Curtis on the grinder. She's got to run across and get ready to pull that big wing back in. Denmark straight in front, aggressive slam dunk maneuver there from the Danish Rockwell team, but it's too little too late. Second place is better than third, so they'll try and make the most of that. But after such a perfect start, heartbreak for them. Clinical from the USA, though. They saw the other boat sailing into less wind. They reacted quickly. They reacted correctly, and that's what it's all about. Teacup, we say in England, thinking correctly under pressure, and that is exactly what Jimmy Spittle did.
So they are fighting for positions on the podium, and it looks like Denmark will have the speed as they are up and fooling now, as the green on top of that mast shows they are up and fooling. And Australia, as much as Tom Slimsby wanted to get the victory, he will not get it. It'll be another third for them. So on the season, they go second, third, second, third, have yet to taste the champagne out on the boat in the celebration as Rockwell comes through, and they will finish in second place, still in hunt of their first victory. Remember, they finished second in Los Angeles, so a second in Los Angeles and a second in Spain for the Danes. A great showing, consistent sailing across the board, but they finished behind the Americans. That is true. Denmark, you just have to win San Fran for the big payoff, and a big wave to the fans that turned out here. Huge crowds on the seawall. Australia will have to look now to Dubai in the Middle East as we say goodbye to Europe. But the Aussies still out in front in the overall Season 4 standings. They are consistent, Lisa, and they do finish in third.
I think they'll be disappointed with third. I think they've really been gunning for a win, and with this team, they are mostly mad at themselves when they make mistakes. And I think that battle with Denmark, that, you know, they were in a controlling position. If they stayed on the foils, they could have got that. Yep. So I think they'll be disappointed with that mistake.
What a show as the win comes in just in time. And in the event final, it's the USA that gets the win, followed by Denmark and Australia.
Wow, here we go, Lisa. What a moment this was at the start.
Yeah, so the start was everything in every other race. We see that the USA team, they're all the way back there, but it was Rockwell Denmark with the best time start. To be fair, they were quite far behind the line at the start, but it looked like they were going to run away with a victory. When it went go, they were still well behind the line. Here we go, best time start, 2.48 seconds behind the line, really. But from there, you'd say normally you'd win the race, but Jimmy Spittle had the advantage of looking and seeing what was going to happen.
So Denmark gets the Rolex best time start. Not that impressive at 2.4 seconds, Stevie, but they got it done.
Well, they did, and maybe this penalty here, this was before the start. Australia headed down towards United States. United States didn't do enough to keep clear, and it put them out the back. Seemed like a disaster. Normally it would be a disaster, but maybe that penalty, it was a bit like a rope-a-dope, perhaps. He kept himself out the back, and he was so far behind that he got to then take a look at the rest of the fleet. And Denmark, well, they looked absolutely perfect here. But as they sailed into the shore, there was some mutterings on board, it's getting light. And look, as soon as they fall off the foils on Denmark, Jimmy Spittle, he doesn't need telling twice. We've got to get out of here. And they got out of there quickly enough to be in front of Australia, to be in front of Denmark. And that decision, they could see it. It was a good decision. It was the right decision, Lisa.
It's about thinking ahead and thinking really quickly. I think really if Denmark had a little bit more space, if they didn't have Australia right on their heels, they might have been able to execute that foil manoeuvre, but you know, the pressure was on, and sometimes it is nice to be out the back and have that opportunity to see the boats in front getting slow. But it was about executing that manoeuvre for USA, and the fact that they spun it fast and kept that speed, that was everything.
I think what's really impressive as well is the three teams sort of shared out their roles a bit differently. Jimmy Spithill in all of that was flying the boat. Australia brought on a flight controller, a specialist in to fly the boat, and maybe that little bit of time there where the wind dropped off, you needed the horsepower of a grinder over, you know, the dexterity and hand skills of a flight controller. But anyway, it all doesn't matter now. A leap to success from the Americans. Great finish, what a race.
Well, we have the data to see how USA took that win. They only did 6 maneuvers, so a little less than the other teams, but they've got all the blue underlines, which tells me full marks for USA. 32.7 kilometers per hour, just as their average speed, which is foiling speed. 4.9 kilometers per hour. That is a lot less distance than we see Rockwool Denmark at 5.7 and Australia at 6. Flight time still not too bad. All teams, I think they treated us to some foiling for the final, which was quite exciting. But yeah, great job by USA. What a win for them, especially off the back of a really tough event in Toronto just a few weeks ago.
So the Americans can now celebrate out on the Atlantic after they get the victory in Cadiz. And we take a look at the final results. The Americans get top spot, 10 points to Jimmy Spithill and company. Rockwool Denmark finish in second, and Australia finishing in third. Tom Slingsby not going to be happy with that, but again, they're into the event final, and they continue to pad their lead in the overall. New Zealand finishing in fourth, just outside the money, followed by Canada, Spain, and France, and a tough going for Emirates GBR, Germany, and Switzerland at the bottom of the table. We go down on the water now with Australia, SailGP, Tom Slingsby and company. And Tom, you mentioned how bad you guys wanted this one on the season. You've gone 2-3, 2-2, and you get another third. What was the difference in this race, and how did you get so tangled up with Denmark on that first leg?
Yeah, obviously the Prix filled in a bit, and it was nice we were able to foil, but it hadn't really filled over the courses, some huge holes, and we should have jibed out early, but we were saying we didn't want to do an extra jibe down that first run if you didn't have to, but in hindsight it was the way to go, and yeah, just a tactical error, which is unfortunate.
Tom, in those conditions, is it almost better to be behind because the boats in front are a telltale, and is that why Jimmy was able to sneak in there?
I wouldn't say it's better to be behind, but for sure he saw us and Denmark get light and jibed out. And yeah, so full credit to them. They saw an opportunity. But these races, when it's that light and yeah, average conditions, it's just one mistake and the race is over. We almost got lapped, like from that one bad call, and that's it. So it's pretty frustrating.
Tom, appreciate your time. You guys are still in first place on the Season 4 Championship, so we will see you in Dubai.
Cheers, thank you.
So a very dejected Tom Slingsby was hoping for the victory here, but they continue to run their streak of making it into the event final, and they get it done here in Cadiz, and they take those 8 points with them onto the next event. Wow, what a race. And I think it was a very interesting point, Stevie, how he talked about Jimmy being in third place and basically saw them get light and said, oh, I got to get out of this.
Well, I think so, and it'll be interesting when we go on board Denmark in a minute and talk to Nikolai. And in fact, we've got a chance to come down on the water with the skipper of Rockwool Denmark. Nikolai, obviously an amazing start. You absolutely nailed that. But as you ran in towards the Cadiz shoreline, you started to run out of wind. I mean, it's very easy for me sat here in hindsight, but do you think you could have seen that wind dropping, or was that just a bit of luck for the USA being behind?
I'm going to be honest, that was a little bit of a luck. Looking from where we were sitting, it was actually looking quite fine the whole way, and same in the other races, it was fine the whole way. So I think that was just one of those where you got to try and jibe out and try something, and yeah, it just paid off.
Anne-Marie, it must be super hard out there. I know second is not what you wanted, but you are second in the overall championship. That must be really encouraging for the team.
Yeah, it's really good team effort. I mean,
you need to turn on your comms. Yeah. Nice.
Sorry, I'm just turning on now. Yeah, really good team effort from everyone this weekend. We keep chipping away, and now we're second overall in the season, and everyone is super satisfied. I mean, in these conditions, everything can happen, right? So we try to do our best every single day, and yeah.
And Nikolai, final question for you before we let you go. How long do you guys dwell on this one? How much time debriefing do you do this before you start looking at Dubai?
I think we're going to move on pretty quickly. Yeah, I don't think we put many foots wrong this weekend. Especially today, we sailed pretty well today, so I think we'll take the learnings and the stuff we can reuse, and then I think we're going to move on to Dubai pretty quickly.
All right, Nikolai, I appreciate your time. Congratulations on a great weekend of sailing as Denmark finishes in second place overall to go along with their second place they had in Los Angeles, and they now sit in the second position overall in the championship for season number 4. How about this, Stevie? Seeing the Americans up and foiling, and Jimmy Spithill giving a nice little splashdown salute to the fans.
Yeah, I mean, it was some way to finish, and look at the excitement. It's been a long time, as Lisa said it. You know, it was second here last year, but it was Saint-Tropez in season 3 when they last won. So event win for USA has been a long time coming, but really well deserved and really well celebrated.
Well, we go on board now with Jimmy Spithill and Erica Reinecke. And Jimmy, I know you said you were never in doubt, but if I look at your report card, you got to be in doubt when the first day you had a second, a third, and then a 10th. You got to be kidding me. You guys come back, you get into the final, and you get the win. Congratulations. Take us through that start, and when did you know you'd make the right decision to get away from Australia and Denmark?
I'd actually prefer not to take you through that stuff, Todd. There was nothing pretty about it. But anyway, I think it's just a real testament of the team that it doesn't matter what position we're in, the whole squad will just fight the entire way around. And as it actually turned out, the first 2 guys after Mark 1 started to go light, and then we were able to sort of lead them out of there, and that was really the race.
Well, Erica, I saw you up on the handles grinding hard. I know you have to pump that wing to get up on the foils. How are you feeling about that?
Feeling pretty good. The 2 Red Bulls I had really charged me up, so thought the handles were going all right.
Oh, well, congratulations. Awesome to see the team up the top there, and now you're 3rd overall in the season championship.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the team, and really thankful to be sailing with these guys, and I look forward to what's next.
All right, Erica, appreciate your time. Jimmy, as always, thanks again. A nice gift sending back to Hans Hankin, who continues his recovery. Taylor Canfield steps on, doing a great job. And in the end, it is the Stars and Stripes that come to Spain, and they take the victory here at the Cadiz Sail Grand Prix. What a performance by the Americans. Jimmy didn't want to talk about it, Stevie, but that 10th place on day number 1, I thought at that point they were done. There was just no way they could come back, and here they are celebrating, getting ready to pop the champagne with the mayor of Cadiz, no less, Bruno Garcia, out on the boat to present the trophy.
Oh, it's going to be a great moment. It's a shame, really, that coach, Philippe Presti, can't be out there. I mean, they didn't mention that, the changes they made between race 5 and the final. There was clearly a lot of learnings. They learnt them well, but perhaps it was when opportunity presented itself, they took it. And they get to enjoy this moment, Todd.
And there is the Honorable Mayor of Cadiz, Bruno Garcia. He will present the trophy. Jimmy's like, nope, hand it off. We're going to get Erica.
He wants the champagne, that's why.
Jimmy's had enough trophies in his day. He doesn't need another one. I think, Lisa, to your point, it was so great the way they made the decisions they did and bringing Erica on. They put a lot of faith in her.
Yeah, I mean, Erica is a fantastic strategist and a great sailor, so I'm sure she definitely deserves to hold that wheel.
And out comes the bubbly, and the mayor is going to make a quick escape as we take a look at the standings now. Wow, Tom Slingsby keeps himself in the running here in season 4. They have 43 points. Rockwool, Denmark, then the USA now sitting top 3. Spain right there with him with 32 points. Emirates, GBR, New Zealand, Canada, France, Switzerland, and Germany as we turn our attention now to the Middle East. So from Spain, we take the journey across the northern part of Africa, and we find ourselves in Dubai. Coming up next, it'll be the Emirates Dubai Sail Grand Prix presented by P&O Marinas. That comes up December 9th and 10th.
3, 2, 1, go, go, go.
Here we go. Grind is working hard. Wow, look at the speed.
Nice one. Watch him.
Too close.
Turn down, turn down, turn down, turn down.
Oh, there's going to be a crash.
That's what I'm talking about. Unbelievable. That's right, guys.
Take a bow.
Good race, good race.
It's about to get pretty wild on that boat.
So that wraps up the Spain Sail Grand Prix Andalusia Cadiz as the Americans celebrate on the Atlantic. On behalf of Stevie Morrison, Lisa Darmanin, and Jenny Tulloch, I'm Todd Harris saying muchas gracias, Cadiz. Our next stop in December, it'll be the Emirates Dubai Sail Grand Prix. We will see you then. The Spain Sail Grand Prix sails into Andalusia.
Denmark is so far ahead right now.
Denmark gets the win as they cross the finish line.
Match race manoeuvre between New Zealand and the United States. Big error by the Kiwis. Advantage USA.
You're not in a race. Go down, Pete. Oi, I heard that.
Expect a lead change.
And the USA SailGP team, they claim the victory.